A lot of people are starting to talk about it. I think you're seeing more and more folks finally starting to talk about, is this finally the year of the real estate boom? I believe that as we watch actual signals, not just like I'm the CEO of a real estate company, so I want it to be this year.
Yeah.
Like no,
Yeah.
we're looking at
Yeah.
actual like what's going on in the economy, what's going on with the 10-year, what are the forces at play, both for and against. But I think we continue to see the scale tip towards we are moving towards Boomsday versus moving away from Boomsday. And that's great for all of us. And we have to be ready.
Good morning. Welcome to another Motivational Monday. My name is Matthew Hodge, Executive Vice President here at LPT Realty. I'm joining you from LPT headquarters here in Lake Mary, Florida. I'm going to bring in Robert Palmer, founder and CEO, who is still in Yellowstone Club in Montana. I know you were traveling over the last week, Robert. I know you just came back from New York. But real quick, want to check in with you, see how you're doing this weekend, man. How are you doing this week?
I'm back in Montana after a
Yeah,
week in New York.
yeah.
It's good, man. We got a little snow behind us, which has been tough out here in the Western United States the last I don't know 4 or 5 weeks. I was down at the Sundance Film Festival for a J.P. Morgan real estate investment banking CEOs conference, and there was like we're like landing in Heber, and there's like brown everywhere, no snow,
Wow.
and so everywhere over out here in the West is really being rocked. But it is snowing now. I'm hoping to take the girls out skiing in the next couple of days if we can get some to stick.
Yeah.
So.
I imagine that probably has a pretty big impact on the tourism for this time of year. That would probably seem like the main event that, kind of brings people in. So that
Yeah, like
could
when
hurt.
I flew back from New York, Jill and the girls picked me up and they're in like shorts and t-shirts and like it was like
What?
55 degrees and beautiful. The golf course is talking about opening up down in Bozeman. Like this is not normal. So
Yeah.
we're pray for snow.
Yeah, I definitely will do that for you. All right. Well, had a great weekend. Super Bowl Sunday. Did you see any commercials that you liked?
Not really, man. It's
Nah,
interesting. Like as a guy who has spent a lot of money on TV commercials,
that's why I'm asking.
I have very strong opinions about TV commercials, and it's everyone has gone like there's this expectation. Look, I found myself falling into it too. When you run a Super Bowl commercial, it's like, oh, we have to put on this like creative, like overly like tongue in cheek or like overly, ephemeral, like not to the point. It's like you can't forget like advertising offer, call to action, like it may make people feel great, but does it make them buy? And
Yeah.
and I think we've just seen too much Super Bowl go the other way. I think if
Yeah.
somebody dropped a great commercial in the Super Bowl with like a strong offer and a strong call to action, I think it would just like crush and like cut through all the clutter because everybody's paying attention, right? Because
Yeah.
the one thing the Super Bowl has done a great job of is people pay more attention to those commercials because of that reputation for being funny or making you think or whatever. I want to be like the just jam it in there, like I'm Robert Palmer and I'll pay all your closing costs. Like call me today to refi because it's just such a disruption from what they're seeing. I don't know. The mortgage TV guy in me was definitely like watching the commercials, like, nah, they could do better. So
Yeah, yeah. I figured that you would have some thoughts around that. For those who don't know, Robert did one of his first commercials at the Super Bowl, and just interesting because I know you've spent 150 million dollars in advertising over the course of the
yeah.
last 10 years, and so I know you think about it and see it quite a bit differently. Okay, so last week we talked about this. You made some acquisition announcements, and you were up in Inman. Walk me through the week. What was Inman about? I know you were on stage a couple of different times. CEO Connect, another one. What was the word on the street?
Yeah, look, it was great. So, flew out to New York last week for Inman Connect, New York City. I spoke on a panel on a place called or an event called CEO Connect, which is, CEOs at all the major real estate and technology companies. It was a beautiful venue, the Rainbow Room, which is the very top of Rockefeller Plaza in New York. There I was on a panel talking about acquisitions and M&A, and it's interesting because they're like, "Will LPT ever get bought?" And I'm like, "Nope, LPT is the buyer. We are." And I'm like, if anybody in the audience is looking to get acquired, just seriously, like we're not for sale. We've got a massive vision for this company. We're building something massive here together. But it was really cool to be able to share, some thoughts on the recent acquisitions we went through in the tech space with Humaniz and Reside. I'm going to touch on those today. But it was kind of fun to, poke at them about like, look, we're, as fast as we're growing, like we would be the acquirer if anything else, if anything, we're not the acquired. And then the next day I was, or 2 days, I guess the next day I was on main stage at the main conference, did a one-on-one and just kind of talking through the future of this industry, and kind of sharing my thoughts on where I see things going, this transition away from legacy franchise brokerages. Matt Levy said there was somebody in the audience near him when I kept saying legacy franchise brokerages. And he's like, man, the way he talks about them, you'd think they were already dead. And I'm like, well, it's only a matter of time. Like the legacy
Yeah.
franchise brokerages have a big problem right now. And it's companies like LPT Realty because the empowerment we can give the agents, the marketing support, the choice, the commitment to real estate first is just the legacy franchises can't compete. So a lot of talk about that at Inman, which was fantastic. There was a funny quote where Ryan Serhant said that, I think he said in 5 years, it'll just be Serhant and Compass. And they asked me how I felt about that. And I said, well, I'm not going to be going to work for either one of those guys. So there will at least be one more player in the game, and that will be LPT. So
Yeah.
I think it was a good conference. A lot of talk about, Compass's merger, where things are going. Big news that, Compass's attempt to block Zillow's, listing transparency policy was denied by the courts. So, that was a big move. So again, the lawsuits will go on, but Compass was not able to win the injunction against Zillow, which means Zillow can now start removing Compass listings from Zillow.com if they are being marketed outside, if they're private listings that are being marketed, right? And we talked about this. We did a deep dive on Motivation Monday a few months ago about this, but there was a lot of talk about this at the conference. And I think kind of the underlying, thought was, look, if a seller wants the listing to be private, like no one's saying that's a problem, but you don't market private listings, right? Like if you're marketing that private listing to 350,000 Compass Anywhere agents, like is it private? Like
Right.
was that the intention, or is that just an attempt to double side more deals or whatever? So there was a lot of talk about that. I use the analogy, which I think a lot of people, it landed with them. This idea, there's the book, I think it's Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Maybe I have that backwards. And I say, look, like Compass is from Manhattan and like I'm from Florida, and it's very different worlds. Like nobody's trying to private list a $500,000 home, in a neighborhood where there's 10 other homes that are very similar. Like you understand the price. I understand like if you're marketing a $50 million, penthouse in Manhattan that's owned by a celebrity, you're going to take a little bit different approach. And so what I see with this whole battle is you have a very Manhattan centric view coming from Robert Refkin in Manhattan. And then I would say you have a very much rest of the country, median home price view coming out of the portals and a lot of the other brokerages. And I think that's the collision that's happening. And that's what I really tried to express to everybody is you have people, you have these two groups that are fighting over this thing, and it's very different in each market. Again,
Right.
the way we market properties at LPT, where our average home price is $500,000, is much different than the way, Compass is marketing properties in Manhattan from a publicity standpoint, a privacy standpoint. But all in all, I think it was a very good conference. We were the talk of the conference because of all the
Uh,
news we've had coming out, in the last week. If you think about it, we had three of the 10 largest teams in the United States announce, LPT Realty in the week leading up to Inman. The smallest of those teams, did 1,600 transactions last year, all the way up to 1,900 transactions. That's Christie Cannon Group, Chucktown Homes, and Keith Pike's group out of Arkansas. Absolutely amazing groups. Today we had another massive team announce Vibe Realty in the DC, Maryland, DC area announced they're probably right there. If they're not a top 10 team, they are super close. They're top 15, top 20 for sure, but probably in the top 10 this year. Absolutely massive organization. They put out a great video on Instagram today, really talking about that combination of their local in-market culture now being supercharged by having LPT, standing behind them.
that's right.
We have another handful of massive announcements coming in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So a lot of momentum around growth, which is fantastic. And then the news broke around Humaniz and Reside while we were at Inman. And so LPT Aperture Holdings, our parent company, is acquiring Humaniz and Reside. Two fantastic platforms to help teams grow, right? And so as these franchises go away, we think that real estate teams are going to become more and more prevalent, right? And so we want to be the best home for our amazing solo agents, but also be able to empower real estate teams at a high level. And then those real estate teams then get to help our agents as well. So really, really great in how we look at that. And if you look at Real Trends data, we had this pulled up. If you go back to 2020, just 6 years ago, there were 4,000 teams on Real Trends. Last year, there were 15,000 teams on Real Trends. And we think there'll be even more when this year's numbers comes out. So there's definitely a massive migration happening. And at the same time, the number of brokerages on Real Trends has gone down every single year. And so we look at the landscape, we see the number of brokerages is going down, the number of teams is going up. And so again, as we think about the enterprise that you all are shareholders in through the RSUs that you earn in LPTA, we want to make sure we have an amazing, robust company. And so, the acquisition of Reside and Humaniz, while bringing benefits and strengths to us as a whole, it also makes us a more valuable company. Because I think one of the failings of the prior cloud brokerages, I want to call them the legacy cloud brokerages too, right? Like the legacy franchises, the legacy cloud, the cloud brokerages, and then you have LPT. But one of the failings of the prior cloud brokerages is they failed to really serve their agents and their teams at a higher level, beyond just brokerage services. And so we think a lot about how do we bring value in these different dynamics? How do we solve additional problems, for our agents, for our teams, beyond just what we serve as their brokerage, right? Everybody has to have a brokerage, but how can we bring more value than that? And this is really where listing power tools comes into play. Now Reside and Humaniz come into play. We have our eye on some additional acquisitions for benefits to both individual agents and teams and team agents. And again, we're building something really special here. The industry continues to underestimate us. We also had some big news break in Canada. Two of the largest teams in Canada joined LPT this week. So the news cycle is all LPT all the time right now on the positive side, which is fantastic. And so just really a lot of buzz going on around LPT and what we're building at Inman. And it was a lot of fun, man. Although I am happy to be back in Montana, happy to be back in my bed, happy to not be hearing the car horns, from the 40th
Yeah.
floor of the Midtown Hilton all night, and been back in my bed at home with the girls. But yeah, it was a great trip to New York, and LPT represented in a massive way.
Awesome, man. Well, we've got some of our Canadian agents here in studio this morning. We were just talking about those larger teams, but I'm going to play some devil advocates here. So I want to ask you some questions. I know the answers,
And
but I
real
want
quick,
to
I
ask
saw,
some
I
questions.
saw a question from Nick. I just want to do I see an end to the solo agent in sight? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
The teams aren't replacing the solo agents. The teams are replacing the legacy franchises. And so I think we're gonna have to rethink what does it mean to be a solo agent? I think you're gonna see this more for this hybrid where you can really operate like a solo agent and still be aligned with a team in the same way before, like at Keller Williams, they were the largest REMAX before them. You were aligned with the REMAX franchise, and you were also then aligned with the local REMAX, owner, the Market Center owner inside of Keller Williams, or the
Mm-hmm.
REMAX, local franchise owner. And so I think the difference being with LPT, you do have the opportunity to be just a solo agent directly at LPT, but I think we're seeing more and more of our teams empower more of a solo agent style model and a solo agent style representation. And so solo agents aren't going anywhere. Absolutely not. Franchises are in real trouble. I think the legacy franchises will be completely replaced by teams. And then I think you're going to see this hybrid where teams attract solo agents that then align with both the team and with LPT, but they still operate very much like a solo agent. And then that's the future I see. And it's really exciting because it doesn't cap people's growth. And so again, not to go off on too much of a tangent here, but the other cloud brokerages require that team leader to take a certain percentage from every one of their agents in order to unlock the fair team caps. And we don't have that here at LPT Realty because we have the aligned compensation model. And so what that means is that as a team member becomes more and more productive and starts to look more and more like a solo agent at the other cloud brokerages, you have to keep hitting them for maybe an unfair portion of their commission, or you have to ask them to leave your team. We didn't want to build a model like that. And so this idea of the hybrid where you have agents that are performing much more like solo agents, but still aligned with a team, right? Maybe they're using a transaction coordinator from the team. Maybe they're using the local brick and mortar space from the team, but they're not fully fully plugged in to mentorship or leads or some of the training, our model allows that hybrid to form where the other cloud brokerages and most of the legacy franchises, they break that relationship because they won't let the team leader give an agent a more solo or individual agent style compensation model. They force them to throw them off the team. And so this is the future. Like, again, we want teams, if they choose to look more like the franchises where there's team agents and solo agents that are aligning with teams. They're aligning with us as the cloud brokerage. Like, to me, the future is very clear. Like, I see where we're going. But if you look at the legacy cloud brokerages and the legacy franchises, like, they have the blinders on, man. They can't see it. And I think that's why we are running them right over at every turn. But yeah, I absolutely do. I don't see a world without solo agents at all. I
No,
think you have
absolutely.
the like pure play solo agent. I think you have like a hybrid solo agent who aligns with a team. And then I think you have your kind of traditional team member agent, team leaders, and that's this new agent choice, real estate first driven in industry and ecosystem that LPT is pioneering at every level.
Yeah, 100%. And, so that's why I kind of wanted to start and ask some of those things because I know some people could interpret it that way. And that's certainly not what we mean. Also, want to give a shout out to the staff for everybody who's been onboarding all these agents and all of these transactions because literally thousands of new transactions are coming through the LPT ecosystem. And so we know our support team have been working tirelessly to make sure it's a smooth transition. I know some people who are working all weekend to help our agents. So we appreciate you so much. I know our agents appreciate you too. And from our chair, of course, to you, we appreciate all the hard work that you do to make our entrepreneurs successful. But real quick, Robert, I want to ask about Humaniz, and I want to ask about kind of these acquisitions. Like, what does that mean for, like, as people are seeing it, like Reside, this coaching platform, like, what does that mean for our agents? How do you think that fits into our ecosystem? I know you kind of touched on it lightly, and maybe you can't share the entire vision of how it all comes
Yeah.
together, but
Yeah.
what does that mean a little bit?
So there's a couple different lenses we look at it through, right? Like, again, everybody put on your shareholder hat, right? Like, as I close transactions, as I help the brokerage grow, I earn RSUs and LPTA. And as a shareholder, like the fact that we are now expanding into these additional services, ways to make the company more valuable in the future, like that's really important. And so that's kind of the first lens we look at this through is this accretive? Is this going to make us a more valuable company, right? My goal is to make us the most valuable real estate company in the world. And a brokerage alone, I don't think can achieve that. And so we need to have a well-rounded, diversified, ecosystem that we are building. Any acquisition we look at, we say, does it meet our core mission of agent choice, real estate first, right? Like, we're not going to get away from who we are. And these absolutely did that. The next thing we look at is who are the people, right? Who are the people involved and what talents can they bring to the overall ecosystem? You look at the talent inside of Reside around agent training and around onboarding and around helping agents get into production. And while they do that on a very high level for the teams that are members of Reside, there's also great ideas that we can take out of that and bring to the entire LPT ecosystem because they have a high level of experience with this. You look at, John Cheplack and Sunit Argawal and what they've been able to build and the success they've been able to help people with, and having them be a part of our ecosystem and help shape our overall view on the world and on how we help our agents at every level. But then at a much deeper level is the way they engage with the teams who choose to be members of Reside, and that's an additional cost. And teams pay to be a part of Reside, and that drives additional revenue for LPTA. And so all these things fit together. And then finally, how can we make them better? Right. When I look at companies like Reside and Humaniz, how can us infusing capital into those businesses, how can access to our resources, how can access to our amazingly talented staff make those businesses more successful? Because look, we want them to be brokerage agnostic. Like, this is not a play to say, oh, if you want to stay at Reside, you have to move to LPT. Absolutely not. Like, we are going to prove to the world and the industry that we don't need to use scarcity tactics to grow LPT Realty. I can come from a place of abundance. LPT Realty will continue to be the fastest growing brokerage and hit all of its goals while making these amazing companies available to teams at other brokerages. Because remember, I believe strongly that as the legacy franchises wane, we will see more and more teams. I do believe LPT is the best place for teams, but if a team leader disagrees with me and they think their current brokerage is a better fit for them and they want to be a member of Reside, like, absolutely, we'll partner with you at Reside. We'll help you build an amazing team through Reside, which which ultimately benefits all of our shareholders back here at LPTA. And so that's at a high level how I think about this ecosystem. We've seen other CEOs take that more scarcity tactic in the past. They buy companies, they then try to force them only into their brokerage. And you know what happens? They usually break. Usually the
Yep.
technology goes backwards. It ends up being worse for everybody. The agents at the acquiring brokerage suffer. The agents at other brokerages suffer. And so I just believe that there's a more abundant approach to how we look at acquiring these amazing other companies in our industry. Same thing with Humaniz, a fantastic recruiting platform for teams. Same thing, they have great training, a lot about agent productivity. Christianis is become a thought leader around, growth and really very much aligned with how we think about where we're going. And so just when I look at the playing field and say, okay, this meets our mission of creating a more valuable company, it stays true to real estate first and agent choice, right? Agents choose whether to engage with these extra products. Agents can always choose whether or not they want to be on a team or not. Like, it's always agent choice. Then we get to align with more great people who make us better, and we get to align to make their businesses better. And the better their businesses perform, the more valuable we are as a whole. And like, this is the future. And so that's really how I think about it. And again, you have not seen this in the past. Most real estate acquisitions by brokerages come from a very scarcity mentality, and it's just not who I am. It's not who I'll ever be. And now we have a real opportunity to prove that to the world. Right? Like, I'm going out of my way in the coming months to prove to the world that we did these acquisitions from an abundance, right? We
Yep.
did this to help the entire industry because we know that ultimately helps LPT agents without putting levers, right? Without putting ultimatums, without trying to force people and take their choice away, right? How can I be a champion of agent choice if I take someone else's choice away by locking them out of a product or making the product worse for them and better here? And so again, it's a different way to look at things, and we are pioneering the future of this industry in this abundance mindset.
That's right. And you've talked about this from the very, very beginning. I remember one of the very first Motivational Mondays, you were talking about your mission about pushing the industry forward as a whole. And while we believe that benefit's going to largely come through LPT agents, of course, the industry is going to see forward movement. And part of it's that mindset and not having to lock people into specific products. And, you've always said it, and we believe that that's going to be your mission continued going forward. So excited for that, man. Excited to hear what new future comes from this and all the additional, I guess, benefits we'll be able to unlock as we move forward. I wanted to take just the last couple of minutes to talk about the market, because I know last week you talked about the new Fed chair and the possible impacts that could have. Any updates that we should be thinking about? Any movement there?
We saw some positive movement on the 10-year Treasury. Some of the jobs data coming out. We got hung up a little bit because the government shutdown delayed the jobs report again, and so we were supposed to get the full jobs report on Friday. We didn't get it. We got the ADP private jobs report, which showed slowing. We got job openings, which the number of job openings has fallen to like worst levels since before the pandemic. So there are a lot of signs lining up that the job market is starting to strain under the economy. That will bring the 10-year Treasury down. As we have talked about, the more the 10-year Treasury comes down, the more impactful the $200 billion worth of Fannie and Freddie infusion becomes. So again, lots of things happening. I still feel really good about where we're going. I feel really good about Boomsday being on the horizon. A lot of people are starting to talk about it. I think you're seeing more and more folks finally starting to talk about, is this finally the year of the real estate boom? I believe that as we watch actual signals, not just like, I'm the CEO of a real estate company, so I want it to be this year.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we're looking at
Yeah.
actual, like, what's going on in the economy, what's going on with the 10-year, what are the forces at play, both for and against. But I think we continue to see the scale tip towards, we are moving towards Boomsday versus moving away from Boomsday. And that's great for all of us. And we have to be ready, because remember, this is going to feel like a rocket ship taking off when interest rates finally come down to those magical levels. And of course, it's going to happen right around the same time, the spring buying season. We
Yep.
are all going to get really, really busy together, and we're all going to have a whole new set of problems, right? We're going to go from like wondering where the next deal's coming from for a lot of folks to, man, I am swamped. And time management becomes more important, capitalizing on all those relationships that we built during the bust to get ready for the boom. But everything continues to line up. We'll see. Like, we should know right now. We should have known what the jobs report was for January. It's being delayed because of the government shutdown. But again, we're looking for that data to come out. We'll keep you guys up to date. But it looks like everything is going to continue to trend in the right direction for us to get that boom doomsday that we've all been waiting for.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for that update. So we are at final hour of, or final couple minutes of Motivational Monday. Anything that you want us to be thinking about? Any final words for this week?
Now, look, I appreciate everybody on here. I know I say this, but I don't think I could ever say it enough. I do not take for granted when I'm on stage at Inman or I'm representing all of you at these amazing conferences. It's about you. It's not about me, right? I'm here to represent you all. I'm here to help guide this ship. But what we are building is a representation of all of your hard work, your commitment in your markets, your commitment to excellence, the way you serve your clients, your entrepreneurial spirit. Again, whether that is to build a small business, a big business, an individual agent business, a team business, whatever it is, we will never underestimate the entrepreneurial spirit that takes. We all wake up every day unemployed. We wake up every day having to earn it. We wake up every day having to re-earn the relationships we have internally and externally. And I have so much respect for everybody that's a part of this platform. And I am so thankful for each and every one of you because these letters mean nothing without all of you. And I never take that for granted. And I don't think I could ever say it enough. So thank you all for being a part of this journey. Thank you all for your faith in me and letting me be the guide of this amazing ship. But I am so thankful for each and every one of you and the hard work that you get out there every single day and show in your communities and to your customers, because that is what makes us who we are. So keep up the great work. I appreciate you all. Make it a great week. And we'll see you back here next Monday for another amazing Motivational Monday.
No, that was a good idea.